In life, we can choose to live our lives one of two ways. We can either live our lives on purpose, or we can live our lives by accident. In other words, you can plan your life and live your plan, or you can simply let the flow of life events and circumstances sweep you down the river of time, taking you wherever it will. This is the quintessential example of go with the flow. The latter, sadly, is the way most people live their lives, by accident. The former is how God created us to live, on purpose. You can see this planning ahead mindset in passages like Ephesians 5:15 through 16, where Paul says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil." Moses says it this way in Psalm 90:12, "Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom." Some might claim that there is something unspiritual about making plans, but for those of us who do make plans, we are in good company. God made plans. In Jeremiah 20:11 it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope." Paul made plans. In Romans 15:23 and 24, he states, "I have had for many years a longing to come to you whenever I go to Spain." And we are encouraged to make plans. Proverbs 21:5 declares, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to advantage, but everyone who is hasty comes surely to poverty." Unfortunately, when it comes to building our financial empires, we call this kind of building getting ahead, we can often find ourselves doing so without any real divine purpose behind it. Successful and disciplined people are able to continue building up their pile of stuff because they have become exceedingly good at what they do. They also find great emotional enjoyment and personal satisfaction in building. So they keep on building without ever giving much thought to where it will end up or even knowing when they are done. With this in mind, there is a foundational question that we as believers need to ask ourselves. We must ask, what is my purpose for continuing to accumulate more financial resources, especially when my pile of stuff is already higher than I will ever need it to be? The key word here is need. In America, the difference between needs and wants and comforts have become so blurred that our wants and comforts have morphed into needs, causing us to consciously or unconsciously redefine what a need is. Jesus tells us plainly that accumulating excess material possessions as a sole end in itself is entirely futile. Jesus poses it in the form of a question. "For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul?" Matthew 16:26. For those who make accumulating more because they can could be likened to the rich farmer who planned to tear down his smaller barns and build bigger barns to hold his surplus wealth. Remember, Jesus called him a fool. There is no greater example of the utter folly of building without a purpose than the story of Sarah Winchester. Sarah was the wife of William Winchester, the only son of Oliver Winchester, the founder and owner of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. Sarah and William had a daughter who died shortly after birth in 1866. This was followed by the death of her father-in-law in 1880, and then her husband just a few months later in 1881, leaving her with a 50% ownership in the company and an income of $1,000 a day, about $21,000 a day in current dollars. Sarah believed that her family was under some kind of a curse and consulted a medium to determine what she should do. The medium told her that her family was indeed cursed by the spirits of all the people the Winchester rifle had killed. She should move out west and build a house for herself and all the tormented spirits who suffered because of her family. The medium also told her that if construction on this house were to ever cease, she would immediately die. In 1884, Sarah moved to California and began one of the most bizarre building stories in American history. She began spending her $20 million inheritance and regular income to buy and begin renovating an 8-room farmhouse in what is now San Jose, California. From that day forward, construction continued nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until Sarah's death at age 83, a total of 38 years. She kept no less than 22 carpenters busy continuously. The sounds of hammers and saws could be heard throughout the day and night for almost 4 decades. At its zenith, this 7-story house contained 160 rooms, 40 bedrooms, 47 fireplaces, 17 chimneys, and 10,000 window panes. What made Sarah's lifetime building project so bizarre was that it had no discernible architectural purpose or plan behind it. Closet doors opened to solid walls. Windows were in the floor. Stairways led to nowhere. Railings were installed upside down. Drawers were only 1 inch deep. Trapdoors were everywhere. Blind chimneys stopped short of the ceiling. There were double back hallways. Doors opened to steep drops to the lawn below. Many of the bathrooms had glass doors. The list of oddities runs into the dozens. Could there be a more classic example of the ultimate outcome of building without a purpose? We may think that what we are building is not bizarre like Sarah Winchester's construction project. But the truth is that unless there is a divine purpose behind why we are doing what we are doing, God may actually find our building project just as meaningless and bizarre as the Sarah Winchester Mystery House. Paul addresses this very issue in 1 Corinthians 3:12 through 15, when he says, "Now, if any man builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each man's work will become evident, for the day will show it, because it will be revealed with fire, and the fire itself will test the quality of each man's work. If any man's work which he has built on it remains, he will receive a reward. If any man's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved, yet so as through fire." This is the very question you need to ask. What foundation am I building on? What materials am I building with? And why am I building what I am building? I think John Wesley had it right when he said, "Gain all you can, save all you can, give all you can." If we adhere to this compelling financial triad as we labor on our building projects, we will be building on a solid foundation, utilizing building materials of heavenly gold, silver, and precious stones. And in our building efforts, we will discover that we are indeed living life on purpose.